Good evening. My name is Catherine LaCroix. I'll be your moderator for this judicial forum. Welcome to the League of Women Voters Forum for candidates running for the office of Judge of the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas. This forum is being held in person and live streamed. It will also be recorded and available for viewing on the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland YouTube channel, accessible from our website, lwvgreatercleveland.org. Our co-sponsors tonight are the Greater Cleveland Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc., and the Ohio Fair Courts Alliance. We thank them for their support. We also thank the Cuyahoga County Public Library Parma Snow Branch for providing the facilities for this event. The League of Women Voters is a 104-year-old nonpartisan organization, which means we do not support particular candidates or political parties. We do, however, offer voter education like this forum, and we take positions on issues of importance to voters where they're consistent with the League's mission. Our two candidates for this forum tonight are Timothy W. Clary and Krivosh. Both are running to complete the remaining 2 years in a term on the General Division of the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas caused by a vacancy ending December 31st, 2026. The judges of the General Division of the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas handled felony criminal cases, civil stalking protective orders, and civil lawsuits that involve more than $15,000. The General Division also hears appeals from some administrative agencies. Before we begin tonight's forum, I'd like to explain our format. We will begin with 2-minute opening statements by each of the candidates in an order chosen at random. We will then ask questions for both candidates to answer. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question. We rotate which candidate answers each question first. We anticipate that the question portion of the forum will take about half an hour. At the end, each candidate may make a 2-minute closing statement. We ask that those of you who are here in our audience, whom we thank for attending, maintain a respectful silence during this forum. And now I turn it over to Mr. Clary for an opening statement.
Thank you very much. I am Judge Timothy Clary. I'm one of your Common Pleas judges, one of 34 actually. I started, just a little bit about myself, I was a county prosecutor for a little under 10 years. During that time I started in family law. I did child support and children family services. After that time, I went over to juvenile delinquency stuff, and then from there I went to general felony. So I tried jury trials downtown. That really kind of piqued my interest. From there I actually left the prosecutors to become a public defender. I defended individuals in the municipal division in Cleveland, something I loved actually very much. I was appointed judge about a little bit under a year ago at this point, after the untimely passing of Judge Michael Russo, and since that time I have served the bench, I hope, with both dignity and respect to those who've come before me. By way of endorsements, I am endorsed by the Plain Dealer in Cleveland.com, a variety of other organizations, but most importantly in my mind, the attorneys who actually practice in the building, who know me, who work with me, who work beside me, in front of me, etc. That's something that's very important to me. I do have a civil background. I worked for a law firm approximately 10 or 12 years ago, but since that time I've been doing a lot of civil work. I was actually assigned to the commercial docket because that's what Judge Russo was doing shortly before he died, and accordingly I've been assigned approximately 50 or so of the state's most complicated civil cases. I've been able to dispose many of those, some of which are still ongoing, but it's been the pride of my life being one of your Common Pleas judges downtown. And so thankful for all of you to be here tonight, and thank you very much for the sponsors too, and the accurate timekeeping as well.
Thank you so much. I first just wanted to say thank you to the League of Women Voters, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, the Ohio Fair Courts Alliance, and the Cuyahoga County Library Parma Snow Branch for having us today. I am Krivosh. I'm a self-described magistrate by day and nonprofit leader by night. I have nearly 15 years of legal experience. It'll be 15 next month. Woo, very exciting. Additionally, I also have judicial experience. I have served as a magistrate for the county for the past 3.5 years. So I am three things. I'm committed, dedicated, and experienced. I'm committed to fairness and justice, and I do that through the cases that I preside over every day as a magistrate. I'm also a former substitute teacher. So I teach from the bench. I explain to people the law, how it applies, why I'm ruling a certain type of way, and I feel that that helps build trust within our communities. Additionally, I'm also dedicated. I'm dedicated to the job. I'm there every day making tough decisions for the individuals that come before me and the hundreds of cases that I preside over and have presided over for the past 3.5 years as a magistrate. And I'm also, what's a little bit different about me, is I'm dedicated to our communities. I've been a nonprofit leader for over a decade, and what that has allowed me to do is to connect people with resources that they need and deserve to put them in a better position so that when they come back before me, they're in a better position or they don't have to come back before me at all. And as I mentioned, I'm experienced. I have nearly 15 years of legal experience, and that spans from not only having judicial experience, but handling civil and criminal cases, as well as cases on every court level, municipal, county, and federal. I'm also a wife and a mom and a travel soccer coach. We keep very busy in my house, so I thank you so much for your time today.
Okay, thank you to our candidates. And now I would like to begin with our questions. And the first question goes to Ms. Krivosh. The roles of a practicing attorney and of a judge are very different, the advocate and the judge. What has been, or what do you anticipate will be, the greatest challenge in transitioning from the role of advocate to that of judge?
Well, I'm very grateful that I've had the judicial experience that I already have. I've been doing the job as a jurist, serving as a magistrate for the past 3.5 years. And I can tell you, as being a former assistant county prosecutor for 8 years, and before that for being an attorney at the city of Garfield Heights, it is a major shift from going to advocate on behalf of a client, advocate on behalf of families and children, advocate on the behalf of someone, to taking the role on the bench, because your role is now to be fair and impartial and make a decision and to follow the law. And so it has been very interesting over the past few years, and definitely when I initially took the bench, it's almost trial by fire because you're now looking at the view of the world very differently. But it was a welcome opportunity, and I'm so grateful to have had this experience. So I do have the experience of handling cases and being a jurist as a magistrate.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clary, the same question. The roles of the practicing attorney and the judge are very different. What has been, what do you anticipate to be the greatest challenge in the transition from the role of advocate to that of judge?
Thank you. So as I explained, I'm a judge already, so I'm not an advocate. I ceased being an advocate about a year ago, around that time when I took the bench. It was definitely a challenging thing. I can tell you, as someone that did it, as being a trial attorney, you appreciate bad lawyering, I think, more than anything when you're sitting up there. It's a frustrating thing, but one thing I've learned from that, a takeaway, is to let the parties present their own case. And sometimes I feel like I know better, and it turns out I don't. And it makes me glad that I sat there and patiently listened and let the parties present their case as they feel is necessary. We wear black robes for a reason. I don't think maybe the robe is technically required to be black, but the reason why it's black is because we're neutral parties. We're not supposed to be advocating for one person or another. Certainly if you see some sort of injustice, so there are opportunities as jurists that we can step in, and many of my colleagues have known to do that. But it's important that we don't play the role of advocate, and I think that's something that I've been doing for about a year now.
Okay, thank you. And now staying with you, Mr. Clary, for the next question. The judge of a common pleas court hears a wide variety of types of cases. Where do you feel you have particular expertise, and where do you feel you still need to learn?
I do think my expertise is definitely with the criminal work. I've done criminal work for a long time. I've tried many jury trials all the way up to death penalty and down to F5 theft cases and tampering cases, all sorts of things, obstructing. So I have a lot of experience doing criminal work, not just with trials, but pleas, motion practice, discovery, kind of learn the tricks, the way things are supposed to work, and maybe more importantly, the way they should work and they don't, with both the prosecutors as well as the defense bar. It's helped me be very patient which is something you definitely need as a jurist. I will say the thing that I have both struggled with and has really been an uphill battle is the civil work. Everyone talks about the criminal stuff, what you see on TV and rapes and murders, and those are certainly important. But the civil docket that we have as general division judges, it's half of what we do. It's half. In some cases, it's more than half, depending on the docket that you have. And that's certainly taken a lot of work and patience for both myself and everyone involved.
Thank you. And the same question, Ms. Krivosh, the judge of a common pleas court hears a wide variety of cases. Where do you feel you have particular expertise? Where do you feel you still need to learn?
Thank you. I think I have a strong experience in the civil realm. So I started off when I was working my way through college and then law school. When I was in law school, one of the jobs that I worked was for a civil insurance defense firm. So I had experience in working there, and then shortly after I went to the city of Garfield Heights where I was an attorney, and then I was able to handle both civil and criminal cases that came before the city. And so during that time, and then becoming a assistant county prosecutor after that, I was able to handle a wide variety of cases, and that includes civil matters. And then now I preside over cases, hundreds of cases every year that are civil and quasi-criminal in nature. And so in handling those types of cases and having that experience, you have to know the rules of civil procedure, the rules of evidence, and either trying cases or having those cases being tried before you. So I do think that I have some strong expertise in that area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And staying with Ms. Krivosh, describe a case you handled of which you're particularly proud and explain why.
That is a wonderful and also tough question. I have a couple, well, more than a couple, but I have a couple that come to mind. So first and foremost, I handled specialized cases when I was an assistant county prosecutor. I was afforded a lot of opportunities to do that. One of them was employer compliance. And so when that happens, an individual is paying their child support. However, their employer is not turning those funds over. And that can require an investigation, and it's extremely problematic. It's essentially wage theft. And so what happens in those circumstances is a person could be prosecuted by the prosecutor's office for having that type of case. And so we had a case, and multiple cases, but one in particular that stands out. That individual was so shocked and grateful that we caught the situation and we were able to prosecute the employer for what had happened. Additionally, I had a case, I managed the federal bankruptcy cases for the prosecutor's office for a number of years, and I was pro hoc vice for the Northern District of West Virginia and wrote an amicus brief for that. So I'm very proud of that work as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Clary, the same question.
Thank you. I'll tell you a story about cases that I've handled since I've become a judge. One of the highlights for me is one of the more complicated civil cases that I've done. It was a jury trial that lasted about 2.5 weeks. And I remember how I felt going into it. The motion practice, there were teams of lawyers involved. I'll note there's about 15 or so people in this room. There were more attorneys sitting on one side of the quorum, and there's nothing more daunting, I think, when you come out and you see just a flood of attorneys. It was a lot. And they're suing for millions of dollars and constant motion practice. Every day it started at 8:30. And what's so special and significant about this case is the many, many witnesses, experts, and the trial took so long, I actually ended up skipping my own judge school. I had to get Justice Kennedy to approve it because the trial kept going, and it ended in a verdict for millions of dollars. And to me, presiding over that civil jury trial, a complicated one at that, is one of my highlights in the time I've been a judge.
Thank you. Staying then with you, what qualities have most impressed you in the judges you've known or before whom you have appeared? Do you think you possess those qualities, or do they give you particular aspirations for your career in the future?
Thank you. Well, certainly I always have aspirations to do better, and I could learn a lot from my colleagues. I'd say my favorite ones are the ones who are the most approachable, two of my colleagues, and they didn't pay me to say this, I promise, who are in this room with us today, I find both to be very approachable people, and it makes a difference. I go out and I meet people that say, we don't really seem like a judge. And at first I didn't take it the right way. I said, well, am I not serious enough or what? But to be appropriate, to be approachable, to have a temperament that people can expect is important. Many of my colleagues have that type of quality, and it really does matter because it can be a total grind over there in that Justice Center, and it can make all the difference, not just a smile on their face, but conversationally. And I hope that my colleagues feel the same way about me.
Okay. Ms. Krivosh, what qualities have most impressed you in the judges you've known or before whom you have appeared, and do you think you possess those qualities, and what aspirations do they give you for your career in the future?
Thank you. I do think that the biggest judicial temperament is so important. And I have been very lucky to learn from so many individuals and jurists who have mentored me, and one who was a magistrate that that presided over my cases when I was a prosecutor and then became a judge. And I really think that judicial temperament, being even-handed, and also knowing how to de-escalate situations, giving people grace when they need it, is so important in this job because we have high volume caseloads, and court is a very scary experience for a lot of people. And it can be a frightening experience for the day in that person's life. And so when they're coming before you, finding ways to really show them that grace and understanding and humility, as well as explaining the process. And I also think that being innovative and collaborative is really important because our justice system is constantly evolving. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And staying with you, Ms. Krivosh, what do you perceive to be the greatest obstacle to justice in the Common Pleas Court, if any?
I think the obstacles that we see on the Common Pleas level, or at least that I have seen, are the inequalities with regards to access to justice, individuals who fall into the justice gap. They do not qualify for appointed counsel for certain types of cases, or they make too much to be appointed counsel. And so what I've tried to do with my outreach within communities is be involved and get people connected to resources that can hopefully put them in a better position. So Legal Aid Society provides free legal clinics. I try to give people that information. And then one more recently, which is fantastic, is I'm a former board member from the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association. I've also served in various committees. I'm a co-leader for their racial equity in the law. And they started a Cleveland Legal Collaborative, which is to help individuals that fall into that justice gap. And I've been able to help train some of the attorneys that are going to provide that free legal service to individuals. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Again, same question. What do you perceive to be the greatest obstacle to justice in the Common Pleas Court, if any?
One of the greatest obstacles, certainly. I'm sorry. You got to always pick up the microphone or the crowd turns on you pretty quickly. One of the biggest obstacles, I think, are when people are treated as a number. We have so many cases, criminal cases, civil cases, and whether you catch a judge on a good day or a bad day, there's a very real risk of it turning into this factory line. So will the gentleman in front, please, come up. Okay. And then behind you, ma'am. And then suddenly everyone just... They might have spent days, weeks, months waiting for their date, whether it's a trial date or pre-trial or whatever. And when people show up to our courthouse and when they don't see us as judges, which happens a lot as on pre-trials, when the cases don't go forward, when the judges don't show up to work, you have wasted their time and erodes the justice system as we know it. It's something I'm very sensitive to.
Okay. Related to that, staying with you, Mr. Clary, what have been the most effective ways to improve court procedure and efficiency, and what other methods would you suggest?
So one big preference of mine on my criminal cases, unless there's some kind of objection, and in the 10 or so months I've been on the bench, I really don't think it's ever happened yet. I generally don't expect defendants to appear for pretrials. I think there is a necessary amount of litigating that goes on in the beginning, right? You got a lawyer who shows up who inevitably most of the time says, well, I just got the case. I haven't even spoken to the guy yet. I'm generalizing a little bit, but it happens. If you work there, you know what happens. And then a couple more dates go by, and they say, well, wait on more discovery. And people, they miss work. They miss child care arrangements. They miss all of it. So if people want to appear via Zoom, they can. It rarely happens with me. I don't know why more people don't take advantage of it. I had a lady that drove up. The case ended up being continued about 3 weeks ago, not at my request as the judge. And she drove all the way up from Columbus, and no one even told me about it. I said, you could have just done it on your phone in the parking lot. And I try to make that clear. I don't like wasting people's time.
Okay, thank you. Same question, Ms. Krivosh. What have been the most effective ways to improve court procedure and efficiency? What other methods might you suggest?
So I have to first agree with my colleague because I do think Zoom and virtual methods is a positive approach. It's worked for me, especially when I've done the warrant review project. Individuals who have outstanding warrants in working with the Cuyahoga County Public Defender's Office and the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office and the court, we teamed up to do a warrant review. Those individuals were at least able to have and continue to able to have the Zoom preference so that they don't have the fear of being arrested while they can handle their case and have a public defender there able to represent them and also to ask for a more reasonable bond. Additionally, I think with the hotly litigated civil cases, you need a strong case management order. That's something that I have found very effective. You're giving people dates that things are due, especially for discovery, pretrial, trial dates. It keeps everyone on task, and it can prove to be very effective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, staying with you, Ms. Krivosh, what are your views as to whether the Common Pleas Court as a whole deals effectively with racial, ethnic, and gender bias?
Well, I think it's a work in progress. I think that some of the work that I've done and the outreach I've done, as I mentioned, I'm a co-leader for racial equity in the law, is to ensure that people are being treated fairly, impartially, without considerations to, race, gender, any of those things. And I think it's outreach into our communities as well to ensure that individuals who haven't had the same type of benefits that we have all had and making sure that they have resources. I mean, there's so many individuals that we see that have trauma and then generational trauma and that come before us, or mental health issues or substance abuse issues, and helping finding ways to reduce recidivism by making sure that that individual is receiving wraparound services when they're in that court system. I think we can do some of those things and continue to do those things while also collaborating with a lot of these nonprofits and community groups. Thanks.
Thank you again. And to you, Mr. Clary, what are your views as to whether the Common Pleas Court as a whole deals effectively with racial, ethnic, and gender bias?
Well, I can tell you what's hopefully an obvious answer to all of you. We can always strive to do better, all of us, certainly myself included. As a new judge, we receive bias training, which is important. I didn't know how much I'd benefit from that. It's important to remember that we don't all come from the same background. And I'm not just talking about racial considerations or socioeconomic. Everyone is differently situated than somebody else. And, I heard the word grace spoken earlier, and I agree with that. Showing grace to individuals, particularly if they're in a disadvantaged position, is one easy way, I think, that you can keep a level playing field. I will say it's important that obviously everybody is treated fairly, and that it's something you hear about often, but in practice it can be a lot different. The bar associations do a good job giving judges feedback. I think if judges are doing a poor job, they let us know. So hopefully our reputations speak for ourselves with that.
Okay, thank you. Staying with you then. In general, more broadly, what changes to the Court of Common Pleas would you seek, if any, if elected for the remainder of this term of the bench?
Well, I know our jury system needs an overhaul. I did go on record recently saying nice things about our jury system in the way that it actually is very convenient for the judges. In other words, we can snap our finger and suddenly we can have a panel of 25, 30, 40 individuals upstairs, lickety-split without delay, which is kind of nice. Turns out the other 87 counties do it differently, which is kind of a red flag. It's no secret that many of you, if you've served on juries before, you sit down there. And I've been doing a lot of juror orientations, and that's the feedback I'm getting. That said, well, we're here, and then we wait, and then they wait a day, and then they come back, and then they're told to go home. And I'm sure that's not a rewarding experience, and probably makes you scratch your head and wonder, like, did I really need to honor my jury summons to begin with? Juries are a fundamental part of our general division. We're trial court. So if I'm talking about juries a lot, it's for a reason. That's most of what we do up there. That's something definitely we could look at.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Krivosh, similarly, what changes to the court would you seek, if any, if elected to the bench?
Well, the court has a lot of specialized dockets that are doing a lot of great things. They also have court supervised release as well as pretrial services. And so in coming from this strong nonprofit background, I would like to use my talents and experience in order to help individuals with utilizing those services and seeing if there's any areas that I can help expand upon those as well. Additionally, as I mentioned, I'm a former substitute teacher and I teach from the bench. I also teach CLEs, which are continuing legal education. I have taught or moderated 20 of those. So I'm very passionate about giving that outreach, and not only to other attorneys and meeting with other attorneys, but also passionate about communicating with our communities on what the court system is and what it does. So what I'd like to do is, if I am elected, is to be able to continue that outreach and take it to the next level if everyone votes for me. So thanks.
Okay, staying with you, Ms. Krivosh, you sort of anticipated my next question. Are there aspects of the Common Pleas Court, particular aspects of the court of which the public is not aware, that you would want them to know about?
I mean, there's so many. I feel so strongly about the resources that are available. Cuyahoga County has so many resources through different agencies, and so does the courts. And I think that, as I mentioned, there's this fear sometimes that individuals have in coming before the court. And a lot of times people don't understand there are so many resources available to help support individuals. So that's where I am just amazed, and I don't have a specialized docket for the cases that I hear, so I have to almost turn my docket into one and treating cases with a holistic approach. How can I help this individual? Do they need to be connected with a public defender and a social worker who can help provide them with those resources? What are we able to do? Can we give them free resources that will help them put in a better position for their job? So I hope to continue the outreach that I've done within communities and speaking at public events about what the court system does and what resources that are available to individuals. Thanks.
Okay. And Mr. Clary, then, are there aspects of the Common Pleas Court of which the public is not aware? What would you want them to know?
Yes, thank you. Well, I've certainly learned that most people don't actually know what we do down there at all. In fact, I think if I randomly called on some people in this room, and I'm being serious here, I'm not being silly, and I asked you to describe exactly the kind of cases we preside over, even though you heard it about, half an hour ago, you may not even recall it, which is frustrating for you and your educated voters who want to learn about what the judges do. People don't know, and more frustratingly, a lot of them actually don't care either. The best thing that we can do is inspire confidence. We've got thousands and thousands of people that come to the Justice Center. It's no secret that most probably walk out disappointed. I'm not foolish enough to say that I think people should walk out with a smile. I think that's ambitious, and if we can do it, that's great. But being able to make people's time worth it, have their tax dollars spent well, is an important consideration.
Okay, thank you. And then staying with you then, more generally, what do you consider to be the greatest issue the judiciary in Ohio faces today?
That's an easy one.
Okay.
It's the politics. I spend more time today, I would say, putting signs in the ground than I did answering questions about what I do for a living. I suddenly find that people run for judge who have never worked in our building before, who have never done a jury trial before. I've got people who ask me not, well, what kind of judge are you? I almost actually never get those kind of questions, if you can believe. Almost never. Sometimes they want to know what high school I went to. I went to St. Ignatius, by the way. But they ask, and they say, "Well, you're a Republican or Democrat?" And then and then the conversation kind of ends. Either I get a high five or they kind of whisk away. And I don't know when it became so bad with the judiciary that that's the defining role. Okay, which one are you? And very few people will ask the types of questions that we're fielding tonight. And I've been on the ballot since December. And I can tell you it's the politics for sure.
Okay. Ms. Krivosh, what do you consider to be the greatest issue the judiciary in Ohio faces today?
I think we're looking more so at the transparency, transparency in sentencing, the equal treatment under the law. Justice Donnelly's initiative that he's been talking about and pushing to ensure that, we're all being consistent. As a magistrate, every day what I aim to do is try to be consistent with myself and consistent with the individuals that come before me, as well as following the law and ensuring that I'm staying up to date with the most, recent areas of the law, because the law is always changing. So I do feel that promoting public confidence and finding avenues and ways that we can do that, I think transparency is part of that. Thanks.
Okay. Speaking of transparency and staying on process issues a little bit, in judicial elections, of course, there are campaigns and there are campaign contributions. How do you maintain impartiality and avoid the appearance of undue influence in performance of judicial responsibilities in view of the manner in which judges are selected?
Thank you. So I am the endorsed Democrat in my race, as well as I had a Democratic primary. I serve on the bench now as a magistrate, and the positive thing that we do have, because there is the information provided as the donations, that's all access, that's all public record. So people are able to have that. There is a cap on judicial donations for the common pleas level. It's a lot different, I believe, from the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. So it's not as significantly much as it may be on the different levels. So I do feel that information being provided to the public so that people have that information is great. I strive every day to ensure that I'm being fair and impartial. And then if there's any issue that I felt that I had, I would recuse myself due to a conflict. Thank you.
Okay. So same question then, on the topic of campaign contributions and running for office. How do you manage to maintain impartiality, avoid undue influence in the performance of your judicial responsibilities in view of the manner in which judges are elected?
Thank you. Well, as judge and also as a judicial candidate, there's already rules in place that very strictly govern how we're allowed to accept donations, what the cap is. For example, as at the trial court level, we can only accept up to $650, which can still be a meaningful amount, but $650 in 2024 is considerably different than, for example, as you heard, state Supreme Court justices, et cetera, or senators, or even city councilmen. They can accept thousands of dollars. And the most that we could accept from you individually, if you said, Judge Clary, you were terrific, the best, is $650. And I think that goes a long way to make sure that one person, I suppose, or a contributor can't dominate the field. I would hope it's obvious to those who come before me that nobody gets special treatment whether they contribute or not. But there are very strict rules about it as judges.
Okay, thank you. And finally, we do elect our judges. Do you have any suggestions about ways we might change the way Ohioans select their judges?
You're looking at me. Does that mean I'm up?
You're up.
Okay, very good. So there's two ways that you can become a judge in every state. And you can be elected or you can be appointed. Of course, in my case, I was appointed, but that's because the judge who had filled the seat previously unfortunately died. So that's one way that appointments obviously will work. I will say many states have a blended system, which I think would work a lot better. In other words, you could get an appointment from those who actually suffer with the judges in the courthouse, the bar associations, and then from there they generally have what's called a retention election. The idea is you put somebody up there that's appointed, and if they're doing a good job, then he or she would successfully keep their seat pending an election. Without that, the way that many judges are decided right now are on name, or the way they do the parades, the mailings that we send out. It's a name game. The jokes we tell are the way people receive us, I mean, it's a popularity contest. Very rarely do we get these questions.
Okay, Ms. Krivosh, same question. Do you have any suggestions about the ways we might change how Ohioans select their judges?
Well, I believe, if I'm correct, at least once merit selection was put on the ballot for voters to decide, and it was turned down. It might have been twice. So the process that we have in place is something that the voters had wanted, is that judges be elected unless they are appointed. And so I think that that is what the voters want, and that's what we have. I do think that venues like this and going out into communities and talking to people so you can get to know us, and also having an open courtroom so that if you want to visit and see what we do and how we practice, I think is very positive. But we are also looking at the state now where our Supreme Court justices will now have a D or R next to their name on the ballot. And so I'm not sure if maybe in the future that will be something that happens on the common pleas level in the future as well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your attention to our questions. Our candidates now each have 2 minutes for a closing statement, and Ms. Krivosh, you may go first.
Well, thank you so much again to everyone that came here tonight and who is listening, and to the League of Women Voters and Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, as well as the Ohio Fair Courts Alliance and the Cuyahoga County Library Parma Snow Branch. Again, I am Krivosh. I am running for judge, and I will be on your November ballot. I am a magistrate, a nonprofit leader, a wife, a mom, and a travel soccer coach. I keep myself very busy. As I've mentioned, I have nearly 15 years of legal experience, as well as 3.5 years of judicial experience, and have handled cases, both civil and criminal, and cases on every court level. I believe I have unique, broad, and well-rounded experience and diverse experience based off my experience as a former substitute teacher and being a nonprofit leader to bring to the bench. Having that unique experience and diverse perspective, I think will help bring collaboration if I am elected to that position on the court. As I mentioned, I have taught CLEs to our colleagues and have done 20 of those. I have also written 11 publications and on a variety of legal topics. I continue to do that working in the future, and I thank you so much for your time. And again, I'm Krivosh, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Clary.
Thank you. Before I start with my usual stump speech, I have actually an assignment for all of you, something to consider. We have a very large legal market here in Cleveland. Reach out to those, all of you know people, whether they're lawyers, court staff, people that work in the Justice Center in any capacity, police departments, etc., and ask. First ask about me. We said, well, is Judge Clary any good? I've been there for years and years, so I think the secret is out. And I will ask you to do your homework and figure that out for yourselves, respectfully. Because while I appreciate answering these questions, consider those who work with us every day, all day, every day, 5 days a week. On that subject, I did participate in Judge for Yourself, even though I was told not to. I think it's very important to put ourselves at the judgment of the bar associations, who, again, as I keep putting it, are generally stuck with us every day. I have excellent reviews from 5 of the 6. Excellent. That's as high as it gets. The Norman S. Bar Association, the Norman S. Minor Bar Association, the CCDLA, the Women's Bar Association, and others. It's important. Go to Judge for Yourself. Consider those reviews. They're the lawyers and the legal professionals who are with us every day. They know what we do in the courthouse. Again, I thank you very much for everyone's time and attention today. Understand, we as candidates, we rarely get, it is on, we rarely even get these kind of questions. I mean, I cannot belabor this point enough. We don't. Someone asked me which part of Rocky River Drive I grew up on as a kid. And it should be more about what we do as judges. I invite you to come to the courthouse. It's yours. You pay for it. Everyone always thinks I'm kidding. Sometimes people turn up. You don't need an appointment. The doors are open. Come see what we do. I invite the media to do the same thing.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. On behalf of the voters, I would like to thank our candidates for being here tonight and for answering our questions. This is an essential part of the League's function of educating voters, and it was wonderful of you to help us achieve our goal. Thank you again to our co-sponsors, the Greater Cleveland Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and the Ohio Fair Courts Alliance. A video of tonight's forum will be posted on the League of Women Voters Greater Cleveland website, lwvgreatercleveland.org. We will have it on our YouTube channel, which you can find on our website. For more information on the other races that will be on your ballot in November, please visit vote411.org, our nonpartisan voter guide, which does include information about judges, I would like to note. Vote 411 is a one-stop shop for election-related information. It provides nonpartisan information for voters, including local and statewide issues, candidates, polling locations, election dates and hours, early voting options, and ID requirements, which are very important because they have changed recently in Ohio. If you're not already a League member, if you found this event interesting and worthwhile, please consider joining us. We're easy to find on the internet, lwvgreatercleveland.org. I want to thank our audience for attending, for being involved, and for helping to support democracy. Thank all of you, and good night.